Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for thanks for attending. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started here in a minute. Get the chat button open. All right. Thank you, everybody. Chris, you ready to get started? Should we give another minute or
I'm,
two?
maybe 1 minute. Once I
Okay,
see 12:01 on the clock, let's get going. What do you think?
that sounds good.
And I assume you can hear me because you responded to what I said. So
Good to see you. I can hear you.
step one, successful.
If everybody, maybe somebody could write in the chat just to make sure they can hear us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Edar, you win. Thank you, sir. Okay, it's official. It's 12:01, Mike. If you want to get us kicked off, let's get going. What do you think?
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, my name is Michael Vassar, and I'm joined here with my friend and ex-colleague Chris Dirth. We'll do our introductions here in a minute, but I just want to start off by saying, how grateful we are for everyone taking the time out of their day today. We're excited to get into this discussion about the role of technology in ABA therapy. Um, in particular, we're going to talk about the newly formed partnership between Lead Squared, the CRM, and CentralReach, the EMR, and how the two systems come together to support the entire client journey. Uh, because really, like that's a pivotal moment for a family when they decide, where their child is going to be receiving their therapy services, and we believe that technology is there to create a positive impact on that overall experience, both for the client but also for the staff who support them. So that's why we named the webinar From Intake to Outcomes, because that client experience starts right from the moment of referral, direct phone call into the clinic, a form filled from your website. So we're going to explore this experience both from the administrative workflow side of things, but also from the parent perspective as well. All right. So my name is Michael Vassar, and I've been working in ABA technology for the past 7 years. Before joining Lead Squared, I was with CentralReach from 2018 to 2023 as an account executive. Before joining CentralReach, I really didn't know much of anything about autism. I couldn't have told you what ABA or a BCBA stood for at that time. But that quickly changed for me shortly after joining CentralReach, because it was right around that time my daughter Kylie was born, and she ended up having a lot of developmental delays and needing a lot of different therapies at a young age. If we fast forward to today, she has an autism diagnosis. She receives 30 hours a week of ABA therapy. So I feel like I'm in a unique position where I can speak to both the industry side of things, but also the parent experience. So I hope, that perspective is useful in our discussion today. I'll pass it over to Chris so he can introduce himself as well.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And hello, everybody. So I joined CentralReach a little over 3 years ago. And my background has been in software as a service, but prior to this, like completely different space for the previous decade. What's been really exciting to experience is I've found that many of the staffers that I work with, like at CentralReach, similarly to Mike, have a direct connection to autism and IDD. I think the same goes for our therapy providers, why they get into the space to begin with. And my oldest son, who's now 20, has autism. And when I became aware of CentralReach through seeing a Wall Street Journal article that I read. I proactively explored a position here. And I'm on staff at CentralReach as an account manager, and I work with enterprise and strategic organizations that use CentralReach to manage their practice. So I'm tasked with managing that relationship between the therapy providers that use CentralReach to ensure that they're successful with the platform. And at a high level, we're an EMR provider in the autism and IDD space. And right now we have a little over 4,000 providers on the platform.
Thank you, Chris. So this is our agenda. Our shared goal between Chris and I and Lead Squared and CentralReach is really to close the autism care gap and ensure that more individuals and families receive the services they need as quickly and smoothly as possible. So I'll discuss some of the technical aspects of the Lead Squared CentralReach partnership and how the CRM integrates into CentralReach and some of the problems that we're going to solve together. If we look at the client journey as a series of steps or stages within a workflow, we'd like to tell a cohesive story of what that journey looks like from both the client perspective, but also the intake administrative staff side of things as well.
And Mike and I hope to keep the conversation as interactive as possible. So please feel free to add like any questions or comments that you have in the chat. So as we go like along the way, we'll do our best to kind of monitor it. And towards the end, we'll open it up to specific Q&A the last 10 minutes or so. I want to start by saying, like, in my experience, I think when most people think of a CRM, they're going to think of it as like a sales or even a marketing tool. So Mike, I'm eager to ask you and kind of frame out our conversation. Like, how do you see a CRM fitting into the healthcare world? Because there is some discomfort when we think of like a client as a potential sale or a lead or like a source of revenue.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer that here in a minute. I just want to reinforce the idea that, there's Q&A. We want to keep it interactive. Also, we should have this recording out to you in the next 2 days or so. But let's actually just really quickly, let's just start. I want to start with a poll. So hopefully there should be a poll question that can pop up here. So let's see. Oh, there we go. So how do you currently handle intake and onboarding of new clients? I want to see how many people have a CRM. Looks like Chris, can you see this on your end, or is this just me?
I see the pop-up. I don't know where to go with it, but I see the pop-up.
Okay. I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds because I think I can end it and then I can
Okay, yeah.
give you the results here. So let me see.
It wouldn't allow me to vote on it as panelist. I wasn't able to answer.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, before I hit end poll, I'm going to tell you. So right now, it looks like we have 19 entries. Oh, now we have 20. About a quarter of those are saying they're managing intake through manually, like spreadsheets, paper, emails. Partially automated is about half, and then fully automated with the CRM is about 20%. And then one answer is through the HR. So I'm gonna hit end poll. Let's just see if this like comes up for everybody and share results.
Oh, there. Yeah, I see it. It's up. Okay.
Interesting. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that. Okay. All right, let me get back to the slide. So, so Chris mentioned the idea of a CRM. So, a CRM is a customer relationship management tool, and it is typically viewed as a sales software. And honestly, that's how it should be viewed in healthcare as well. You're managing the relationships of the families in your pipeline, which are your leads, your existing relationships with families already receiving services, and also potential referral sources. So that's more of your typical like business to business relationship. And the first step in the process is client acquisition. So how are your clients finding you?
Right. And Mike, I know like your story that you started to share is pretty personal, but I think it's really relatable to the audience. Do you mind if I ask, looking back, like how did you find an ABA provider for your daughter, like once a diagnosis was received?
Yeah, it was a pretty painful experience, to be honest with you. I think if my wife and I didn't have certain connections, which we leveraged, I'm not sure how our situation actually would have turned out. Luckily, my wife knew the husband of an ABA business owner who happened to have availability for us. So we got lucky in that case. But that introduction happened after like several months of struggle. So when we received the autism diagnosis and Kylie was of school age, we reached out to a lot of like local ABA clinics via phone, lots of Googling, website forms. I won't go into all the details of the process, but what we found out was that we as the parents had to be super proactive when it came to following up as far as like next steps, getting updates. Did you receive our paperwork? Did we miss anything? We were put onto wait lists, but it wasn't exactly clear if it was a wait list or it's not a wait list. We were trying to find out like the ETA, like when will you have a BCBA or when will you have staff assigned? So um, but it felt like every time I had to call in, I was starting back at point zero. I'm pretty sure we were probably entered into like an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. They had some basic information on us, but the uncertainty of everything caused like a lot of stress for my family. Long story short, it wasn't a good experience, and it led me down the path of finding a tech solution to help organizations in this process to like engage with families more effectively. So back to like the slides here, the idea is Lead Squared will connect to all of your communication. So your phone system, your text, your email, your website forms, your social media, your Google ads. So we can attribute where the lead or the referral is coming from, easily engage with them as they enter the intake pipeline as a lead. And then, we need to verify, are they a good fit for our services? So we want to find out, are they in network? Do they have an autism diagnosis? If they don't, we can redirect them into like a nurturing email campaign where we can guide and educate the families on how to go about getting the diagnosis. For those families who are a good fit, we're going to track their progress through the various stages of intake, and those can be configured to each organization. But those stages could be like collect the intake paperwork, and we can set up a parent portal where they can easily get that paperwork over. Next stage may be verify those benefits, schedule the initial assessment, or do a tour of the clinic, and then maybe at that point we're pushing the client details into Central Reach. So we're creating that client profile, and this includes adding the contact labels, mapping out the required metadata fields. But you're removing the manual data entry from your intake team, and you're just automating that workflow. And Lead Squared implementation team does that full build out of the account. When we talk about automations, they create the integrations with Central Reach and any other connections to like your phone and text system, your web forms, all of that stuff. And our process is to scope out the full project, make sure we're delivering on all the key objectives the organization is hoping to achieve. Uh, Once the client is created and entered into Central Reach, the clinical team and the scheduling teams take over within that platform and just like complete the journey within Central Reach. So from a high level, that's how the integration works. And I'll just like pause really quickly and see if there's any questions about the partnership there.
So I do see, I see two questions. I saw a question earlier that I think is pretty easy to answer, and it's what if I have an existing CRM? And then if we go into the other Q&A, there's a secondary question in there, Michael. It's if our company offers diagnostic services in addition to ABA services, do you have solutions for both wait lists? So if they have
Hmm.
kind of a separated wait list. So two questions. What if you have an existing CRM? And then also this question that Jenny put in the chat, if you offer diagnosis services in addition to
So
ABA.
yeah, so as far as like migration from an existing CRM, like we've done that a lot with, your other CRMs like a Salesforce or a HubSpot. And we will take both like those um existing clients that are in there or the ones that are in progress through the intake process and migrate them in. That's part of our implementation process. The other question was around like, basically like if you do multiple services, like you have diagnostics, but you also do ABA therapy, you could really have like two separate pipelines. So, and if you have wait lists for those, you could definitely like segment like which wait list they're on, and you could do that from geographic locations. You could, search to see how long they've been on the wait list, what their availability is, what their insurance, like all that stuff. So you have those reports available to you. But from like a diagnostic pipeline, that could kind of feed into your ABA pipeline. So you would almost have two separate journeys going. So that's a great question. That's something that the CRM definitely can handle.
Thanks, Mike. I hope that's helpful. At this point, can we kind of shift gears a little bit and segue our conversation into maybe like the parent experience? And what I mean is like while going through that process that you were describing, you mentioned you had to be like super proactive with phone calls while you were going through the intake or on a wait list. And I imagine that for a lot of families, like that's going to be a super stressful time in their lives, and they really don't know like what the expectations are going to be like for getting services or how that differs from traditional healthcare experiences. Because while we know a lot about like ABA and IDD, a family with a new diagnosis or some new concerns may not have any background or context. So, what are some things that you feel like could have kind of looking back, could have made your experience or the experience for a family who doesn't know anything about ABA therapy, like how could that be improved upon to make that experience better?
Sure. So like if I fill out a contact us form from your website, or even if I call in directly and speak to an intake coordinator, getting an immediate email or a text message which could clearly lays out the steps or even like a potential timeline would be helpful. There's always like a fear that your emails or form submissions are just like entering into an abyss and you're hanging by the phone hoping to hear back from someone. So just like make it easy for me to get the necessary paperwork filled out. I'm a big fan of like short tutorial videos, and you can embed those into like an email and show me like the steps I need to do. I prefer to know like what steps are my responsibility and then what steps you're taking on your side of things and like how long I can anticipate a callback or some sort of update. I personally prefer texting as a way of communication. So even just knowing the best means of communicating with the family is helpful. Uh, for families that aren't familiar with ABA, even just some like educational materials about the science of ABA, a little bit more insight into your company, the people that work there could really help put the family at ease. And again, I think short form videos are really nice.
Thanks, Mike. What about families that might be in what we would call like the pre-intake phase? So they don't necessarily have an autism diagnosis, but they feel they probably need support. What should they be doing?
If you're a parent and you don't know where to turn and you start like Googling autism, you could go down some pretty scary rabbit holes. So when we talk about like client experience, we're talking about who was there for my family when I needed you the most, like who showed me empathy that I needed at that time in my life. because the parent and like ABA provider relationship is unique to all of healthcare. To me, it feels much more personal, like they're a part of the extended family. And that relationship starts at like the very first touch point and continues on for years. So whoever is able to build that trust and shepherd the family through this complex insurance requirement landscape is going to earn the family's trust. And once you start services, it doesn't end. So as a parent, you want to participate in the progress you're seeing with your child, learn as much as possible about like different methods of handling certain situations that arise at home. Um, so maybe this is a good chance to ask you, Chris. Maybe you could talk about some of the tools CentraReach offers parents to stay in the loop once therapy has begun and they have like a clinical team assigned to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Mike. So like obviously CentraReach, we're an EMR, right? But I think we're approaching the way we've built our EMR differently than some of our competitors. And it's with intention around the learner being at the center of like everything. So with the learner in the center and then collaborating with all the support systems. So you have the family, you have the therapist, you have the case managers, they're all ultimately working together to improve the outcome of that learner. So we've built and we continue to expand on what we call our Care 360 ecosystem. And from here, like we're providing the most comprehensive EMR for the autism and IDD space specifically, which often means multidisciplinary services. We definitely have the largest footprint right now of ABA and IDD customers like using the software. And if I look back at like 2024 into now to 2025, our focus has been to automate and bring AI-driven features to our customers with the goal of like shrinking as many administrative hours as possible in order to expand clinical work that the therapy BTs and BCBAs are doing. So we're supporting the therapy provider through the entire process of care. Like we're talking about, the intake and the wait list management, but then once that happens, you've got to do scheduling, you're performing assessments and then ongoing reassessments. You're collecting data in the sessions, you're managing the billing and the entire authorization process. And because we were talking about like parent experience, something in particular that we're really excited about is our launch of the Care Companion application. And it's an app-based solution that's going to provide the families support and resources, not only for while they're on a wait list, but as a supplement to the therapy hours that they're getting. So this Care Companion app in specifically has a library of like what you were talking about, short form videos and easy to digest like descriptions and background of what ABA therapy is. And Care Companion in particular is one example. It's being built out in the same way you would experience maybe like a meditation app like Headspace or how the Calm application works. So I'm thinking now maybe we take a look at the Q&A box again, because I think I saw a question in there. Putting you on the spot here, Mike.
Yeah,
Do we have a way to measure parent sentiment, maybe like through surveys during the intake journey?
we do. So we can send those out. We can automate those out at like some aspect of the journey that could be triggered and sent to them, and then be able to track those responses. Um, I also saw we talked a little bit about the wait list earlier, but you kind of mentioned something that made me think about it. So that is a big part of the journey. So if you end up on a wait list, just getting those nurturing emails. Hey, here are some things that you could be working on at home. Here's some interventions. Here's just some educational materials. And then from like the organization side of things, they can also be able to have like different wait lists by geographic location, by clinic, store information about like parents' availabilities, and see how long they've been on the wait list, and quickly kind of be able to find the right fit for the availability that's opened up.
Thanks. So talking about organizational experience now, so segueing from the parent and caregiver experience over to the organizational experience, you had pointed out that organizations that we know are taking the time to engage with each client and show genuine empathy towards the family, they're more likely to earn that guardian's trust, and then ultimately like their business as a client, right? And what we know to be true, given the demands of like your staff as a therapy provider, juggling administrative tasks while like navigating ongoing staffing challenges, right? Like staff retention.
Mhm.
Is it truly realistic that we can ensure like every client is going to receive the time and attention that they deserve? Like as a provider, that's probably a huge challenge for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The way I see it, there's really two ways to kind of fix that problem. Either you're throwing more people at the problem, which means you're really taking resources from the clinical teams and allocating them to like the administrative side of the business, which doesn't scale. And I think that's like the value of a software like Lead Squared and CentralReach. They provide tools that scale. So if you give your staff the right tools, they can be more productive and be able to talk to more of those clients. A platform like Lead Squared is really all about like automating workflows. And when I talk about automations, I'm talking about automating communications, like emails and text, based on where the client is in the journey, tracking paperwork, what's been completed, what's still incomplete. It's automating tasks to different internal team members in the workflow and assigning ownership of that task. So keeping people accountable for timely actions. Um, but Chris, you work with some of the largest ABA groups in the country. I'm curious, what challenges do you think a large organization faces versus, let's say a smaller one?
It's a good question. I would say most commonly staff retention is going to be the biggest challenge, probably regardless of size, but especially in larger organizations as you try to scale. Secondary to that are margins. Like there's small margins in a lot of healthcare spaces, but it seems like there's very small margins in the autism and the IDD therapy space. So what we do is we advocate to our customers to invest in technology like where they can that's going to address the challenges. So things like embedded into CentralReach, like our scheduling features, they ensure that BTs are going to get enough hours to make a living wage, and in turn they're going to stay on staff. We have a lot of organizations that are putting professional development at the forefront, like for their staff. So, and especially at the BT level. So there's such a shortage of qualified providers, both BTs and BCBAs, to meet what's obviously a high demand for services, and that's going to continue to grow. So then at that point, hiring, growing, and retaining talent is going to be the most important investment as a therapy provider that you can make. From a technology standpoint, at least for CentralReach, like we offer a professional development program, which is the CR Institute, and that's where employers can provide trainings, CEUs, test prep pathways for their staff. Many organizations will put programs in place that are geared towards empowering like the BT to grow towards their BCBA license. So if you have a system in place where you can home grow BCBAs, that's amazing. And we find that those staffers tend to stay with that organization. Beyond training, we're developing tools and we've brought them to market that remove a lot of tedious administrative work. You don't want BCBAs like on their laptops catching up on documentation or scheduling like all hours into the night, which does happen because they're wearing a lot of hats in addition to managing their caseload. So software inside CentralReach like ClaimCheck AI, NoteGuard AI, and Scheduling AI, they're all geared towards automating just what is a massive amount of administrative work. And we find that those investments that our customers make are really reducing burnout and improving staff retention.
Mhm. Yeah, actually that makes me think of something. One of the problems Lead Squared is actually solving for, which wasn't apparent to me when I first started showing the platform to ABA groups, is that we help organization forecast their staffing needs. So it's obvious now, like, that's what a CRM can do and how important that is when we talk about increasing access to care, especially for organizations that are operating in different states and large geographic regions. But if you can get data on those clinics and get reporting on like the demand buildup, it really helps recruitment teams know where to focus their time and dollars. And on like a similar note to that, referral management is something that comes up a lot too. So when I was working at Central Reach, I'd never really interacted with marketing teams or business development, or sometimes they're called growth and strategy. But being able to like associate a lead with the referral source is super valuable. Like, where can we get the most bang for our buck? And I think just like everything else, leveraging data to make impactful decisions for the business has downstream effects on the overall client experience. And I think that's like the main takeaway from our discussion today. The right technology that understands the needs of the ABA industry can provide valuable data to help reduce the administrative costs and put the focus back on individual outcomes of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, everything that you just outlined, like in that last talk track, that it highlights exactly why the partnership makes sense between CentralReach and Lead Squared. I know that together with this approach, like the goal here is addressing challenges that ABA providers are facing. So it's streamlining intake, it's improving the communication with the families, it's ensuring smoother transition from that referral point to through services. And by leveraging features of like Lead Squared's CRM alongside CentralReach's EMR, we're helping the providers create a more structured, efficient, and what we know is going to be a family-centered intake process. So I think, like, to the audience, if your organization hasn't considered implementing a CRM, or if you're looking to optimize your current approach, because based off the poll, it did sound like something is in place, or at least a manual process for everybody. We hope that what we showed during the discussion, it gives some insights into how Lead Squared and CentralReach are working together to improve the intake efficiency, increase that engagement, and ultimately enhance the client experience through the entire journey of care, which is why we're in the space to begin with. And we appreciate, everyone for joining us today and being part of the conversation, carving out this much time. I know you're busy. And before we wrap up, though, we'll be sending out a short post-webinar survey. So we'd love to have your feedback. Your insights are going to help us continue like delivering discussions and solutions that best serve you and your clients. Mike, real quick, do we have anything else in the Q&A if we want to open it up? I know we're finishing a little earlier, but
Looks
we can
like
get
we
the time
just
back.
got one. How can we connect with Lead Squared to learn more about their CRM? I believe that there's going to be like this survey that's going to come up and basically ask you if you're interested in learning more. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to pop up right now. Just want to make sure. If not, you'll get an email from us, so you can get my contact information and all that. So we'll be reaching out as well. So I think there should be some sort of survey that's going to pop up here in a second.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions? But thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate the time. Hopefully this was insightful. Yeah, thanks for your time.
All right.
Bye, everybody.